There.
There we go.
I didn't want you to have to redo everything. So we've
Yeah,
been there. We know what that feels like. So.
yeah. I was gonna say I might have to restart it again, the introduction. So let me go back and restart again. So this session is the qualitative research development session, and I invited a guest, and this guest is someone that I met on on a residency, and she just completed her PhD program, and she's a heavy advocate in with veterans, and I invited her on to discuss how she came up with her topic. But before I start, I'll tell a little bit about who I am. I am Dr. Edwin Brown. I'm a founder of QualiCoach, which is a service I started back in December to help undergraduate and graduate and doctoral students with the structure and guidance during their qualitative research journey from topic development all the way defensive to their defense. So if anybody's interested, my website is at qualicoaches.com, and I just published a workbook that is on Amazon.com called the Qualitative Research Journey, which is just a workbook from beginning of the topic development all the way to dissertation ready and the potential questions that could be asked. So if anybody's interested in that, you can go over there and check it out as well. But now I want to introduce Dr. Katie Ballio, and I want you to tell a little bit about yourself.
About myself.
Yeah.
It gets easier and harder depending on what audience I have. So
Yeah.
first, so let me first, because it'll line it when we get to later parts in the question. So I did 20 years in the Army, so I retired from the Army. And I have to do my first disclaimer. I'm not representing what my day job is, even though I'm going to explain. So I worked for the VA and stuff for 2 years. I've worked for Texas Workforce Commission, and for the last 10 years, have worked for Texas Veterans Commission, to where I work with veterans with significant barriers to employment. So I'm employment focused, which requires me to do community outreach and employment. So a lot of different stuff, let alone just when I'm not doing all that stuff. I'm a definite member, active member in the VFW, Veterans of Foreign Wars. I am a member just for the American Legion and DAV, but I've been a post level, a district level, and I currently hold state chairmanship. So when we get more of my topic, it makes it easier and harder because you're immersed, but then that makes it harder because you have to
Mhm.
prove what you know. You cannot go just because I did 20 years in the Army. I know stuff.
Yeah.
Not how it works in the PhD.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in some ways it
Yeah.
actually made it harder because it's
Mhm. Yeah.
like, and and so I'll save a little bit for if you have, to certain things. But yeah, so if you're in the field, it's easier and harder
Mhm.
and stuff like that. So uh,
Mhm.
so I will tell you that my program at Walden, I did my master's at Walden and did my PhD at Walden, and so I chose human service, military, families, and culture. So that part becomes more important when you're trying to figure out what topic you're doing.
Yeah. Okay. And then that was my next question to you could to go ahead and go into how your research topic evolved
Ooh.
and how it started broad and how you narrowed it down to help refine your focus.
Oh, so I think I don't know about the master's level because that I didn't have to directly do a thesis
Hmm.
on it, but when you start at residency one, they use that word alignment, and you learn to love to hate it. So,
Oh yeah.
but when you
Yeah.
finish it, you understand it.
Yeah.
So, um, I would tell you when you're trying to develop your topic, first of all, what is your degree in? What is
Mhm.
your emphasis in? So, well, yes, military, families, and culture, that I could have gone every single
Mhm.
where. But I
Yeah.
would tell you, like my friends that were in crisis management or any of those, they had to stay within the realm of your program. So first you have to understand whatever program you're in, that's what your focus is.
Mhm.
So even though military, families, and culture, yes, I could enter to any single discipline, but it had to be in a military or family focused. So, that's the first thing they tell you. So I was like, okay, well, I know I'm going to do about veterans. So default. And, and I remember residency one. And so residency one in Walden, for me, that was like my second class. The first class is your introduction. The second class, I'm in residency one. And they were like, what's your topic? I'm like, wait a second, I'm still trying to learn all this stuff. And they were
Yeah,
like, and
yeah.
of course I knew what I was going to, and so they threw me out there and I was like, okay, let's go. And so when I was like homeless women veterans and they're using resources and stuff like that. And of course, at that time, I'm like, I don't know, I knew it was going to be veterans. Could I have told you it was going to be women veterans?
Mhm.
The residency one, no. And so I think it really starts to uh, it's not lit review, but the lit review tells you what your topic is.
Yeah.
And you can say like, I want my topic to be on women veterans. And I'm going to say, because I didn't do homelessness, but if you were going to say women veterans and homeless resources and the impact, you have to, what is a women veteran? What is homelessness? What is the impact? And what has not been studied?
Hmm.
That becomes a little bit harder than what you
Yeah.
actually think.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I'll give you I'll do a simple example for my friend Reese, Dr. Strong. She started out with doing crisis matter management and post traumatic um, PTSD or TS. And then she goes to residency, and they were like, "Well, why don't you do post traumatic growth?"
Mm-hmm.
So that one word changed the whole trajectory of what she was going because that hadn't been studied.
Hmm.
So, and when you're trying to do research, so you got to figure out first of all, you have to define what it is. And so, my topic kept evolving. It was always women veterans. So let me say it that way. And, and then it's like, well, what's your theory? How many theories are out there? So if you're not familiar with that, I'll let
Yeah.
Edwin help you because you're like, well, look at theory. I was like, I don't know what theories are out there. So actually, my thing got approved with a totally different theory
Hmm.
stuff, and then they were like, it's going to be hard to defend that theory
Yeah.
with women veterans, and I was like,
Hmm.
all right, so here we go. We're going to change the whole thing. So what your focus is and your theory matters
Hmm.
more than what you will ever realize until you get to chapter 2 and 3. Actually, probably chapter 3, depending on, if you're in a PhD, because all your questions, all your stuff is theory,
Hmm. Yeah.
theory, theory, theory. And it's like, so my theory happened to be social identity theory. Um, and you have to know it frontward, forwards, backwards. And so part of when you're trying to narrow down a topic is what does your theory say? How's it been used and how can it be used?
Hmm.
And so um and so that's a lot easier and harder than you think. So, I mean, I'm sure everybody goes, he's like, hey, we're gonna do veterans and we're gonna do this. And
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
like, well, what does the research tell you? First of all, I'm gonna tell you, if you start the word veteran, you better use a whole lot of other words with it because you, it's just so much out there.
Yeah. Broad. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and then, how it came to part of my chapter 2, which is your theory, is that I had to say, like, because mine is focusing how women transition. I had to say that, well, this has been used in psychology, it's been used in social work and everything else. So I was able to narrow that down to say, hey, a lot of this is this, this, and this.
Hmm.
Because if you're looking at how somebody uses it, is that a psychology? Well, we're not psychologists. We're human service. Was it a
Hmm.
social work thing? Not human service. So, but you can say it's been studied through those lenses. But
Hmm.
how does it work for you?
Yeah.
And so the narrower the topic came and came and came, and probably chapter 2 probably evolved it more.
Hmm.
And then you were like, because I was just like, because if anybody's ever had to do a lit review, that's not fun.
Yes. Oh,
That will make you decide do you really want to do a
yeah. Yes.
PhD.
Yeah.
I'm just, it's like, and and I'm gonna say be real for everybody. It's sometimes hard to stay motivated. Um, I know you, Walden, I used a lot of their library, and to be fair, I used Google Scholar a lot.
Mhm.
Google Scholar allowed me to chain it. And so you don't understand the importance of that. So if, everything that we had to do had to be within 5 years.
Yeah.
So when you're trying to do your study,
Mhm.
oh, that's a great one. And it really depends how long are you going to be in your PhD? Wait, that's a 2000. I'm not graduating for 2 years. Oh, I can't use that source
Yeah.
unless it's your theory.
Yeah.
So you have to remember that. So that's why the chaining, okay, that's a 2000 source. Who's might have used it before that, after that? Then
Mhm.
you can use it. And then it's like, okay, well, how am I different than them? And
Mhm.
one of the things that I had to do a lot was, when they tell you like, what's the best practices or where can the study go? What should be done after, what should be studied after it? How, and
Yeah.
it says you gives you that, that's a good place to start.
Mhm.
That area right there will tell you. So,
Yeah. That was actually my next question, is what part of your topic was initially too broad?
uh, So I think I was going to do women veterans, and I started out with women veterans and how do they use online forums. But I
Mhm.
had a whole, I was doing a whole different dissertation, and I'm going to say because I was going to use it like literally in, it was like looking at what they wrote
Mhm.
and how it was. I was going to use the theory tend and befriend, which is like, hey, how do I help you? How does somebody help out and somebody help? In the simplistic version. But they were like, how are you really going to defend that? Because I was
Mhm.
using their words. And so it was a different type of qualitative and stuff like that. And we went back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. And so it came down to do you want to graduate? Not necessarily, but if you can't defend it and your chair can't support it,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And sometimes to be fair, it came down to an IRB thing because if you and the review board, so if you can't get approval to study a topic,
Mhm.
can't study it till you get approval. So I
Mhm.
couldn't, even though again, remember this goes back to me being a women veteran, and so I'm already on social media. But
Mhm.
at some point, I had to like I knew if I was ever going to need any of that, I had to stay away from it.
True.
So because I couldn't use anything that wasn't approved.
Mhm.
So if you're trying to use something, if you're working in a field that you have knowledge of on a constant basis, you can't use it until IRB says you can.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, and it's like, okay. So, and then that is a really important thing to know, especially if you're using anything that's online.
Mhm.
Because if you can't say, like how you and I are on LinkedIn, you can't use a topic that might evolve LinkedIn, but you can't use anything prior to IRB gives you permission for.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then you have to know, can you get permission afterwards?
Mhm.
And so there was a lot of that. And so again, like I have my book right here. See?
Mhm. Oh, nice.
Look,
Yeah.
look,
Okay.
look. You will know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I want to tell you, because I'm going to read this verbatim, because there's a point where you're getting and you're doing all this research, and it was like, what's my topic? And
Yeah.
I say that until you're in there. So I had to put the sticky note. This is what you have to focus on, because
Mhm.
it's very easy to do the rabbit holes because you
Mhm.
start down and you look. So my topic, my dissertation was women veterans use of gender specific online social support systems for social identity after military service. So
Mhm.
when you say all that, you have to prove every one of those words.
Yes.
Women veterans, you don't have to prove that one, but why is there a need? So, like, remember we were talking about theory, right? So there went the social identity. So why do they have to do it? So I chose to use online forums because I was like, it hasn't been studied, or it hasn't been studied in this way. So
Mhm.
that this way can become a very important reason when you're doing you're trying to narrow down your topic. It's like, what is this way? Because are women veterans being studied? Yes. Is there more now in the last 10 years than there was before? Yes. And even though the online forums, and then you look at it. So for instance, if I did women veterans, but if that same study that I did had been all about male veterans,
Hmm.
okay, if I change it to women veterans, that can be my topic.
Yeah.
And I can use somebody else's study to use, to collaborate my topic.
Hmm.
So it's like, but when you start using online forums, then it's like, oh, a lot of that, some of that may be social work, some of
Hmm.
it may not be, and you have to still prove what, what it is. So you can't just say women veterans in this, you have to like, what's the issue?
Hmm.
I I can't just say because I'm a women veteran because I know this stuff and I work with transitioning veterans. I know this stuff. It
Hmm.
all has to be proven. So, and to be fair, when you start really, then you got to figure out what's your population. It can't be just women veterans because IRB is like, well, what's that? Who are they? What are they? And then
Yeah.
you like for in the veteran realms or this, and it's like, oh, can't touch active duty. So then your topic starts to evolve around that. Oh, can it be about transitioning?
Hmm.
Yes. So then you have to bring in all your research about what is the transitioning challenges and what has anybody say about, because mine's not a phenomenological study. So veterans are not new topics.
Yeah.
Online forums are not new per se. Not they're being looked at very differently now, but it's not a new thing. So phenomenological couldn't have been used. It's not new.
Yeah.
And so it was really narrowing it down was like, what does a lot of the information out there, and it's just like going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then like when you start to try to narrow it down, okay, well, transitioning. How are you going to get to the interview part? All right. So now you got to figure out what's my population.
Hmm.
Huh. What,
Yeah.
and then you go back to chapter 2. Well, what is your research? So the narrowing of the topic could, chapter 2 will, and to be fair, my chair started me out on chapter 2. I know there are different chairs in Walden, they'll do one. Nope. Because she was like, chapter 2 will change chapter 1,
Hmm.
or it can change chapter 1. And mine did.
So that actually makes sense. I can see how it would, why she would do that though.
I think it does make sense, but I think, and when you're going through the PhD process, they tell you that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Your time.
It's, you better love your topic
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
and so I think sometimes you start out really feeling motivated in chapter 2, and then they were like, well, and why? And you're like, okay, I thought I was getting somewhere. Or you go down a rabbit hole. Nope, not
Mhm.
alignment.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so the alignment word, and to be fair, that's why they tell you and you don't realize, depending how long you've been in chapter 2,
Hmm.
put your what you think is your research question somewhere.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to be like, oh, I'm gonna do this, and then you realize like I'm looking at stuff that doesn't directly have it has to do with veterans, so but it doesn't have to do with my topic.
Yeah.
So, and it's like it matters, but it's really hard to see sometimes when you're in chapter 2.
Yeah.
Because and the first thing is like your theory. You have to research all your theory. Well, part of it is like, how's your theory been used? Great. That's not necessarily, that's sort of easy to find, and then you can, where it starts and then you coming forward.
Yeah.
And then has it been used for veterans? So then you're like, ooh, okay. And so, you have to like, okay, so now how has it been used? And if it's not veterans, does
Hmm.
what their study is, can it apply to veterans?
Yeah.
So,
Got it.
there's, yeah.
Remind them. Yeah. How
And
they.
so, yeah, there was a lot of like,
Yeah.
oh, back forward, back forward, back forward,
Yeah.
So,
What feedback influenced your narrowing process? What was the feedback that you were given to implement?
so I would tell you, I was. I was fortunate that my chair was a veteran.
Mhm.
So, and I'm going to say in some
Oh,
way,
nice. Cool.
so my chair
Mhm.
was a veteran, my methodologist was not. And I had both of them were phenomenal. So
Yeah.
let me say, and I would come to appreciate my methodologist more
Hmm.
because she helped me with the coding thing.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
I did hand, okay, I know that you're recorded. I did hand coding. I did not use the computer program for that. So basically use Excel. So it
I
made
did the
sense
same
for
thing. I
me.
did
I
Word
was like,
Excel. Yeah, that was
I
mine.
said, but my methodologist wasn't a veteran. So
Hmm.
she would ask, come back, I'd write it. And so again, there's certain things that make sense, like,
Yeah.
well, when you're to make sense because you're a veteran, why would somebody go to the VA? Okay. But when your methodologist asks you, well, why is the research, why do they want to go to the VA?
Yeah.
You're like, because they're the VA. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
again, and so that made it better because I had to actually, can somebody who's not a veteran understand my work?
Yes.
Because you have to go through, and that's part of the whole process. Somebody else has to be able to see what you did
Hmm.
and they replicate it. And so that was a lot of the feedback. And my chair would give me resources, or sometimes it would like, well, what about this? Or you had to defend why you chose certain things.
Yeah.
Now sources, you don't have to defend every single one of them, but you have to know how to defend them. Why
Hmm.
is this important? So there was a lot of that, and there was times I was frustrated.
Hmm.
Sometimes you have to be like, they tell you, don't make it personal. Don't
Yes.
make it personal.
You get you get it. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And I would tell you, I know you're talking about narrowing the topic, and I would tell you if you can find, and I'm going to use the military phrase, if you can find your battle buddy that
Hmm.
you very, or
Yeah.
you've gone through this, and I would say that was Dr. Strong, and I would be like, Reese, and she finished ahead of me, but I would be like, Reese, I don't get it, and so she was like, okay, let's break it down, or she would ask me questions, and I'm like, okay, again, she's not a veteran, so sometimes it's like,
Yeah.
oh, all right, that we're looking at different resources, so the first things you have to understand where that gap is, and when you're early on in a master's we didn't have to do that, so
Yeah.
I would say that, but
Yeah.
you don't, if you can understand the gap early on, it will help. Where do you want to focus?
Oh yeah.
and and so you can take a population. So, like, one of the recommendations I use were like, you could do the same study with an all male population. You could do
Hmm.
the same study, change it up, and you could do it military spouses. So my
Hmm.
study can be changed, but that's sort of like what you're looking for the gap. So if you want to say veterans, then are you doing male and female? Fine. Where's your gap at to where it says, well, it's been done this way,
Hmm.
I'm going to do it this
This
way.
way. Yeah.
And so if you like, the online forms thing, it's still relatively new to be researched on.
Hmm.
Again, does everybody, I think most people can be like, hey, most people can understand how social support can be given, no matter if you're a veteran or not, on online. You go in and ask a question. Yeah, but you have to prove it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again,
That's
you
it.
can't just, and then where's the research that you can back yours on? Because, we are not PhDs until you're a PhD.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you have to be able to,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it becomes a little bit, and it, maybe that was the best and the worst thing for me because I was so in it, I knew where to look
Hmm.
on different things. I was familiar with, how to gather, but sometimes when you gather, you
Yeah.
get overwhelmed.
Yes.
It's like,
Information overload too. That's
information.
how I was feeling. Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah.
that's why it's like put the little sticker because I almost went down a rabbit hole. I was like, I'm looking at stuff because it was all about transition, but I was like, that's my there's a transitional component to my study, but my study is not about direct transition challenges.
Mhm.
It's about how do they use them on how are they using an online forum for social identity and social support. Not 100% how about transitioning out of the military.
Yeah.
So, you can go diving off a cliff and then we're like, I'm spending like a month. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
not even now. In that month, you may find that, oh, there's 3 or 4 things I can use.
Hmm.
But it's like you can spend time not on something that you should be looking at.
Yes. Yes. And another thing, how long did it take for you to get your topic clear? Like, this is it. Okay, I'm
It,
running.
I thought, to be fair, it was probably about a year and a half. And only reason why, because I have a day job and a
Yeah.
volunteer. So the
Yeah.
PhD was not my life. And
Mhm.
this is where I have to level own it. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
say that because sometimes you're like, I have other stuff going on, and there's those. I'm not saying mental health days, but there's days like I want nothing to do with nothing.
Yeah.
And so could I have gotten there faster? Yeah, probably. But so chapter 2 gets you your topic.
Yeah.
Chapter 3 is where you have to like, okay, chapter 3 is based on chapter 2 because now I need to know, why did you choose my 3 to 5 year time, the gap? Why did I choose that? Well, the research tells me that. And
Mhm.
then you have to go to, and then that's when IRB comes into play, and you're like, okay, this. So
Yeah.
I got a first time go through IRB, but I would be fair to say Reese helped me because I saw, and it's not, we in the military we always use that phrase. It's not about reinventing a wheel.
Mhm.
IRB doesn't change, but sometimes you're like, I don't know what they want, and when you get to this point, you're like topic, and then if IRB goes no, then you're like, okay, what do I have to change to get?
Dang, yeah, yeah. I don't know. I had to do it a couple of times myself, and I think they say remember, you only get so many times to redo the IRB form, and yeah,
Well,
yeah,
I mean, like I said, I got a first time go, but and I got a first time go, and I would be fair to say that my interview questions. So again, when you're talking about your topic, you're going when you can't. Your questions are based on your topic.
yeah. So how many times did you change your research question?
I think I probably changed it about 5 or 6 times, and it,
Mm,
it was always about like the online for women veterans in the online forums, but to get the gender support in there. So it came back to, what am I studying?
yeah,
And then I think with Walden, is it 16 words? You know, I think,
yeah, something
or
more
something
around
like,
there.
yeah, what is ProQuest going to accept? You
Mm,
know what I mean? So you're like, okay, I have to make everything. So I
mm,
had to actually say gender specific. So I couldn't just say women veteran forums.
yeah,
No, I had to say gender specific. So that
mm,
means there wasn't men in there and stuff like that. And so because some of my questions were about mixed populations, but I'm focusing on gender specific. So
mhm,
it's almost a compare and contrast type. I had I'm going to say compare and contrast questions because some were like, hey, in a regular veteran forum about claims, this
mhm,
wasn't one of my questions. Did it matter? And did it matter if it was all women veterans? So
mhm,
that comes to the gender specific and stuff like that. So the topic was there. It's just to narrow down that focus and then
mhm,
using your theory, because the social identity part was all about social identity theory. So it's
mhm.
to get my theory in there, which created part of the research question.
Okay. How long did it take you to get the theory?
Okay, so remember, so all the way up to residency 5, I was tend to be friend. I'm
Mhm,
like, I had it, and then I get to I mean, I already went, got it approved and went on to dissertation, and they were like, no.
mhm.
And it
Yeah,
was a no. And here's what I would tell you now at the end of everything.
yeah,
Social identity theory probably, I'm going to say this unofficially. Social identity theory is probably the grandfather of tend to be friend. Because
mhm,
social identity theory says, you're in and out groups, and social categorization. So all those things. So I think, we think, you think.
yeah.
So tend to be friend is how do you interact? It's almost like, hey, we're PhD people. We're going to talk to each other.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean? Or we're going to help each other. So, but I didn't make that correct correlation until the end, to be fair.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, what's a theory? And there's so many theories out there, and some are specific to, different things. Like ours was human service. So
Hmm.
you weren't going to go get some psychology theory
Hmm.
unless you could prove it. And it's like, and you're not in the psychology field, so you use it differently.
Hmm.
And it was just like, well, what can be this? And I think there was like two other theories, and then my chair helped me. And they were like, what about social? And then you have to make sure, wait, if you use social identity theory, is like how much information is out there to be
Hmm.
able to pull in. So social identity theory happened to start in 1970.
Yeah.
So the tenets of, we say social identity, and now the days we like, oh, and then you say online forums, and like, well, that's not what the theory was, because that was 1970. The internet wasn't around then. So you have to bring it forward, and how is it used now in an online community? So it was like, literally switching from to dissertation when I got the like, no, we have to rethink this. But the
Hmm.
good thing was 10 it didn't require me to change a lot of the main core, meaning that the online forums were still a go. I'm looking at it differently. I'm not looking at what was written. I'm looking at the interactions now on how they felt. So it it was a lot of change, but not as much as if it wasn't like completely scrap everything.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Would you some common early mistakes? Would you say choosing passion without feasibility can be a common mistake in the beginning?
um yeah, because I'm gonna say, because like obviously I'm a veteran. So, and I'm in military families and culture. So you have to choose what you can prove.
Hmm.
So I think that's a big comment. The feasibility meaning, is there information, and what is the information? So you can't say, if you go super broad, and like they made a comment in residency, if you want to study anything homeless,
Yeah.
how many studies are out there
Hmm.
about homeless? What is something new that you are going to study?
Hmm.
And new can be, you can limit it to maybe the area you're living in, but then you have to you know what I mean? You have to prove that in research.
Hmm.
And that becomes, the feasibility side becomes, can you prove it in research?
Hmm.
Not just like, hey, I know we have a homeless population.
Hmm.
And then, but then it's like, well, what aspect are you studying? Are you studying it from an individual? And depending on what's going on with that, ooh, will IRB allow you to, because vulnerable populations, right? Or, or you're doing it from a social worker perspective, or human service, there's no resources perspective.
Yeah.
Is there no, wait, does that mean you're studying real people? Do you
Hmm.
see, you're going to have to like
Yeah.
work that topic out, and it may almost, like they said, sort of like that pyramid thing. All right, what's your top? Who do you want to study first?
Yeah.
It's like, fill in the words, because like if you do homeless, it's going to take you every single, all of a sudden you start with a homeless population, then all of a sudden you went to rural
Yeah.
homeless, and you didn't even know you're going there, but that's where the research led you.
Yeah. I like how you said that. That's a good way to look at it as a pyramid. I never thought about that. That's a
Well, because everybody's like, you had the big topic, like, okay, so what was your topic? What was your overall topic?
who mine?
Yeah.
Mine was the experiences of veterans seeking peer-to-peer support for mental health services after COVID-19.
So yours is either veterans,
Hmm.
super big, and then peer to peer, and then, or it's mental veterans dash mental health. So imagine if somebody's trying to figure out a topic, veterans and mental health, like,
Yeah.
okay, that is so broad. What do you want to do with that? And I will tell you that, like peer support, right? That's
Hmm.
a very in human services, right? In online forums, what is peer support? And then I say that, and this is you and I talk, but you have to define that.
Yeah.
And so I had to define what social support meant.
hmm
Because
Yeah.
if you are a social worker, social support can mean one thing. If you're
hmm
in psychology, it can mean another. In human services, it just means like, hey, how do you receive information from different things?
Yeah.
So I mean, by all means, take the pyramid thing. I just think like even for years, like if you started out, even flip it, if you started out with peers, COVID-19,
hmm
how many things are that? Then you'd have to next down is like
Yeah.
veterans.
Yeah.
Well, what about it? And then, like then if you do mental health, what's new about it?
Well,
Yeah.
that was my next question too. Ignoring the scope and access. That was actually one another common mistake too in the early on. So that was just gonna bring that up too. Ignoring the scope and access.
Well, and the scope part is, and I think, you know, you don't you hear it so much at the end, align, or you hear it through the early parts alignment,
Yeah.
but you don't get it until the
Yeah.
until the end.
When
It's like,
everything like is yeah yeah.
hey, give me a line, okay. But so I think the scope and access it comes into what's your field,
hmm
stuff like that. Because if your program was mental health, you would have a different intake on your topic than a human service field can have a whole different perspective on your topic.
hmm
So, your access is like and it might be who's your audience. Who
hmm
are you writing it to? I mean, and I'm not saying we all don't write it to the same thing,
hmm
but mine's human services focused, so it didn't have to be. I'm not talking about counseling.
Yeah.
So while my part of my was transition challenges, right? And I'm like, how do I write that? Because so I have a paragraph where it says, while this, like, I'm gonna paraphrase it because I'm saying it wrong, but you'll understand your readers will, or your listeners. So if I'm talking about mental health challenges for veterans that have gotten out of the military, I can say this has been studied from a psychology, social work, and different domains, but with using the field of online forums has not been covered.
hmm
So we know mental health and mental health challenges has been done for veterans that have gotten out of the military. There's lots of research out there.
Yeah.
My thing was online forums, but
hmm
it's not direct. So it was just transition challenges for using how they used online forums.
hmm
So you can say it's been like A, B, C, and D. Just make sure it's not F. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a lot easier to, and it's like, and they tell you, and you don't get it until chapter two, and you're like, and you don't appreciate it till you probably get almost at the end of chapter two, because what you don't want to do is find out somebody's doing almost the exact same thing that you are, or you did. And then
Yeah.
you spend all that time,
Yes.
then you got to go still find the gap. So,
Yes. Yeah. And another common mistake I think is overcomplicating research questions.
I think, well, and I would tell you that when I didn't do one of the residencies was like they were like, well, yours could be two different two research. I was like, I'm thinking to myself, my chair said I didn't have to do two, it's one.
hmm Yeah. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Walk away. We were walking away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, obviously I did all my residencies virtual, but the overthinking comes because, and I think maybe that's why Walden, the 16, you know what I mean? But it's like your title is almost your research question.
Yeah. That's pretty much, yeah, just kind of flipped around a little bit, you know?
Right.
And that's my next thing I think is a common mistake is waiting too long to narrow everything down. Like, you get comfortable with what you have and you like, and then you start seeing like, damn, maybe I do need to narrow this down, but you're already so far into the research and things, and something starts to kind of
Well, and I would tell you that, and yes, I had to completely change mine when I got to the dissertation.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one of the good things that the people that I have for residency and through the program, they were like, try to work for a PhD and obviously going to Walden, they were like, try to work your topic out from the start.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you go, I mean, residency one, I think to be fair, I was like, what did I get myself into?
Oh, oh yeah.
like, you
Yeah,
want me
you
to do
did.
this? It's
Yeah.
like, wait, I don't know what you're even saying yet. It's like,
Yeah.
and so every single time it was like, even when I'm going through some of my classes, depending on what it is, I'm trying to figure out, let me do my topic. Let me
Mhm.
try to figure out something with veteran. So, you start residency one. And like I said, I started out with women veterans homelessness because,
Mhm.
they put you on the spot. I'm like,
Yeah.
you were there, but you constantly try to work towards it. Maybe that's a better
Yeah.
phrase. Don't
Yeah.
wait to the end to like, okay, well, what's your topic?
Yeah.
Oh, you're already behind the power curve on that one.
Yeah. And I know they tell you too, don't get too attached to that topic either because it could change over time.
And I would estimate that anybody who's gone through the program, it changes.
Hmm.
Now, it didn't change for women veterans, but
Hmm.
almost everything else, I mean, from the online forums, it changed how I looked at things.
Yeah.
So, you can go in and say, this is what I'm passionate about, but it's going to evolve. Maybe that's a better word. So they always like, like, I think when you're going through the PhD process more so, you hate the word change. You,
Yeah. Oh
you get
yeah.
to that change,
Yes.
like change. And so then I had it like me and Reese is like, we're evolving, Reese. We're evolving every single time takes us closer. So you almost have to play even the mental game is like, okay, change this, change that. What about this? Okay, we're evolving. It's getting there. And
Mhm.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I remember I started with the veterans and the substance abuse, and I was adamant about that, but they were like, it's so broad. There's so many studies already done on the veterans with substance abuse and PTSD type, and plus it was a vulnerable population. So RB was like, nah, you need to change that. So I was frustrated because I was just adamant about doing it, and so yeah,
Well, I think that sort of like what you were doing for people. I think you have to having somebody to have those conversations.
mhm,
Because you and I would have been like, okay, substance use, mental health. Are you doing women? Are you
mhm,
doing, or in this day and age, are you going to do the impact of their children?
yeah,
You know, you're not going to talk to the children. There's a lot of ways to take, but you want somebody to bounce stuff, brainstorm,
yeah,
because you would have been like, okay, and that may not be what you need to study, but then you're like, okay, why? And so if you have somebody that you trust, or even if y'all are going through that process and you're like, I'm just as confused as you were, because
mhm,
and I know I am a qualitative person, 100%. I got to the quantitative because they make you go to that course. I
yes,
thought I was
yeah,
gonna quit. I mean, there was a part of me like, it's like I tell people, and you go through the imposter syndrome, and it is real a little bit, but and I tell people, look, quantitative. I passed because I watched YouTube videos.
yes, yeah,
Look, I was like, push the button, click,
mhm,
stop, push the button.
yeah,
Not because now did I understand how to read those numbers and stuff? Yes.
mhm,
I made it my mind. And I would tell you that that's probably a good thing to remember to make sure if you want qualitative, make sure you don't choose a topic or a research question that's quantitative.
mhm. That's a good point too. Yes, I think learning what I've learned is, the difference first. I had to learn because I did that in the beginning. I was like, oh, I didn't want to do a quantitative. I wanted qualitative, but I didn't realize you have to ask these questions. Like from the population or what is it that you want to know? Like, if you want to know something, um, There's a difference how qualitative is about, the lived experiences, and then if you want to kind of learn something through numbers, you use the quantitative. But I didn't know that in the beginning, and then that's when I started realizing like you have to distinguish the two, and that's a good point that you brought up. It's very true.
So I mean, and how is very and there's more to it. If you want the experiences of somebody,
Yeah.
that's qualitative because numbers do not tell you experiences.
Yeah.
Numbers may give you the numbers behind the data, but
Hmm.
it doesn't tell you the why. So I always tell people I'm a why person.
Hmm.
Numbers are great, like homelessness. Great, the numbers are there, but why? So
Yeah.
why to me, why is qualitative.
Hmm. Yes.
Care more about the why now, so
Yeah. And what would be like some practical advice if someone is feeling stuck?
I think it's really going to depend where you're at.
Mm,
Um, if you're just trying to figure out your topic, look at um, so if you were going for something mental health, right?
mm,
Go look at something that's not what you want to focus on.
mm.
And I mean, and to be fair, I know Walden had a great library, does Google's your friend. Google
Yeah.
Scholar is your friend.
I was just going, yeah, yeah.
Google, I mean,
Yeah. Even my chair advised that too. Yeah, both of them was like, you can use Google Scholar, where there's peer-reviewed journals in there and they're up to date and yeah.
well, and yeah, so a lot of the, so just to make sure, so Google Scholars is a great way to unstuck yourself. So put the question if you were doing veterans and mental health in the last 5 years, because
Mhm.
Walden was 5 years. So then you just change your parameter in Google Scholar to 5 years.
Yeah,
Okay, you're going to get a bunch, but what is it they're talking about?
yeah,
And
yeah.
then you may be able to get unstuck that way, or literally like, is it just because you need a population change?
Mhm.
Population is not necessarily male, female, but like for mine, it was people that had gotten out of the military in the last 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
If somebody was trying to do for a gap, is the same thing? Can it be done with women that have been out of the military for 10 years and they still use that? Well,
Mhm.
that is a build on a study, but that's a gap.
How
Because
about can I clearly explain my topic in one sentence? Would you say that's can be a little advice to ask somebody if they can do that and they can take that advice and
I think I'm gonna say two. I'm gonna say two sentences. And the reason why I say because if I was just to give you, or maybe you should say your research questions to stand alone
mm,
and stuff like that. So if your research question, I mean, and that's why you have to get so focused. And that can be frustrating and
yes.
stuff like that. So can your research, if I was to, I have to actually get the research question, but if I was to pull it out, would you understand what I was looking at?
Mhm.
And stuff like that. So, but explaining it, sometimes you may need why. Okay, so why do I want to do that? Well, there's a reason why, because
Yeah.
that's going to be your summary. So
Yeah.
think about you're going to have to answer all those, because I was that person that
Mm,
I did not read every part of every single study I looked at when I was doing my chapter two.
mhm.
I'm reading the summaries.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm looking for summaries and
That's a lot
keywords.
of reading. That's a lot of reading.
Well, but if you're looking at the summary, so think about your summary defines what you're writing about,
Yeah.
like what there's. So you're looking at keywords. So yeah, I mean, I do think you can do it in one sentence, but
Mm,
I don't think I'm gonna say I don't think you can do that to almost chapter two
mm,
because you can't. Are you changing? I mean, I would assume, here we go, not the non PhD person that almost everybody's topic changes. It doesn't
mm,
have to change dramatically, but it doesn't unless you've been doing research all this time on it, it's
mm.
something's going to change.
True. True.
So, and you have to be prepared for that.
Mm. Would you say your first idea is rarely your final idea? Would you agree to that?
I will definitely agree. So, yeah. It's not gonna, what you start with is not gonna be what you end with. Now the big picture, women veterans, okay. How we get there to at the end game is not what we start with.
Yeah. Okay, so time is winding down, but Dr. Ballio, what advice would you give anybody struggling with the topic, with their topic development?
So I would probably first say, what is something that you're passionate about or you have a real interest in?
Hmm.
Because that you this is a long game. It's not a paper you're going to turn in at the end of a semester.
Hmm.
Stuff. So if you start with that, start with your whatever you're passionate about or what you have a one like a full interest in, because that way you'll stick with it.
Mm.
So now how that focus changes, but if you don't care about veterans and you're in a program that focuses on veterans,
Hmm. Oh yeah, yeah,
well, because you're gonna, I mean, unless you're focusing on families, but you know what I mean? So choose a topic that you are interested in or passionate about.
nice. Well, I want to say it's been a pleasure to sit here and have this with you, and your expertise is has been very informative, and
Now we can talk about peer support all day. I can talk about that in a whole other.
yeah, I just want to thank you for accepting the invite and you coming on today.
Oh yeah, stuff. At the end of the day, I think all of us who've been through the journey understand the journey. And
Yeah.
and until somebody goes through it, and I would tell you that I know we're about, oh, it is hard. It feels good when people are constantly asking you, hey, when are you gonna be a doctor?
Yeah.
It be mentally tiring too. So
Hmm.
just know that it's okay to ask for help. And I'm gonna, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I was just my next thing to say. If you could, I mean, you can say your contact like LinkedIn,
Yeah.
where people can reach out to you if,
Yeah. Oh no, definitely. Well, you have it. So you know what? I'm connected with you. So we're gonna make sure that they'll
Okay.
find you and then they can find me. But yeah, I mean, I'm like, and I'm always for what I do professionally and volunteer and all that stuff. It's like if anybody needs help with veteran stuff, definitely reach out to me
I
or
look and see, and I can tell you have like a deep passion for advocacy with veterans, and especially women veterans, and I see that a lot, and I think that's awesome. And I can tell you're inspiration to a lot of them, from the work that you're doing and continue to do. So I have to salute you on that.
thank you. I mean, and again, it goes, but and I was like you asked me, passionate about, interested in, but no, you have to prove it.
Hmm.
You can't say I'm a veteran
Yeah.
and I can't say stuff just because I did 20 years in the military. Not every women veteran that thinks the same. So you
Hmm.
have to go in to be like, you have to prove what you say. And I'll do one last little funny thing, not
Hmm.
funny thing. If you served in the military
Yeah.
for any length of time, thought one of the harder things was for me was to get, I still say female.
Hmm.
If I'm talking about female veterans, I use them interchangeably now, but
Yeah.
that was the hardest thing because they were like, nope, you have to use the women veterans.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I was like, and I argue with if the VA can say female,
Mhm.
no, it's
Yeah.
it's it's women veterans. So,
Mhm.
and I would tell you that was it. Not to say change, it's just how I say things now. I
Yeah.
still go back and forth, but as far as that, just be prepared for those little things.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I appreciate it kindly. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Hey, we can always do this again another time, and I definitely wish you well.
I
It is
definitely would like
it is
to start hosting more and sharing the experience and so others can take in and hopefully it can be used as a guide to somebody that's struggling with, getting through this because they see that we got through it, and and I appreciate your very honesty on and how you describe your journey from start to end with this topic development. But I do have a few other topics later on that I would like to touch up on and, share with others. So
Oh yeah. No, I mean,
definitely.
I'm always, at the end of the day, I always say I'm a sucker for the 1%, you know. Besides the 20 years in the military, I retired from the military, you know, and the PhDs.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
so,
All right.
yeah. But no, any time that I would gladly be on with you. And if anybody who sees this is that's connected with you, if they have questions, they can reach out.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, and stuff. So,
Okay. You have a great Sunday.
all right, you too as well. All right, bye.